Fine. So in the last session, we have seen how the enterprise definition we can see as a default definition. The second point is we created location for business unit, and we created a business unit and we selected the same location. And after creating the business unit is going to involve in which business function related business processes. Accordingly, we enabled, or say we assigned business functions to our BU. Now the target is employee user creation. When you create the employee user, we have to select legal entity and business unit. When you select legal entity, system will verify the selected legal entity for specific employee is associated with a specific LDZ, legislative data group, or not, which refers the country payrolls. So to make sure that the legal entity is connected with the LDZ, what we have to do is first we have to create legislative data group that we have to assign to our legal entity. That legal entity we have to assign to our employee user. That's how system will understand the employees belongs to which legal employer. The legal employer runs payroll under which legislative data group for which country. That sort of understanding system will have, that would be supported for employee user creation. Now we'll go and see how to create the legislative data group. Okay, so when I talk about legislative data group, that legislative data group you can just create from FSM homepage. Okay, you can just create it from FSM homepage. That is a primarily HCM related function. You can directly create from FSM homepage. Go to search for legislative data group. Legislative data group. So here is the task called as manage legislative data groups. Click on this task and say create. Just click on create. It's a very simple definition. You can give the name as, so we are using for all the definitions Cloud INC, right? So the same name you can use, Cloud INC USA legislative data group. Select country. United States. And based on the country, system is defaulting the currency and cost allocation structure. We know, like in case of EVS also, as a part of payroll, we have a key flex bills. Out of that cost allocation, key flex bill also one of the key flex bill which you have in EBS. In the same way, like when you talk about legislative data group, it always point to payrolls. So the payroll related cost allocation structure you have to map to this, but it's optional. Anyway, we are not going to implement HCM, so we can ignore it. It's an optional setup. Okay, just provide the name and select country. Based on that system defaults currency, you can say submit. So this is how we can create the legislative data group definition which refers specific country payrolls. Done. Now what is the next task? The next task is the same legislative data group LDZ we have to assign to our legal entity. Okay, to perform the task, you can go to FSM homepage. Here search for legal entity, or yes, legal entity HCM information. Just try with this. Search for task called as legal entity HCM information. Task is manage legal entity HCM information. So here HCM information nothing but legislative data group. To that we have to map the legal entity. That is the meaning of assigning legislative data group to legal entity, or assigning legal entity legislative. Between these two we have to map it. That's all. So here find our legal entity. Our legal entity name is Cloud INC USA legal entity, right? Search search and find the name. So this is the one which we created earlier, right? Just click on the same name. It will open the definition, so you can do the mapping. So this is a legal entity. It's some information. Here what we have to do is, what we are trying to do, we have to assign LDZ. We have to assign LDZ to our legal entity. Now we are in our legal entity page, which is mapped with HCM related information. To this legal entity, we have to assign our LDZ, legislative data group. To assign that, you can go to edit and say update or correct. And what is the reason you are going to update? It's not mandatory to specify, just say okay. So we have a effective date tracking function in HCM, same as EBS HRMS. So that's the reason they are giving update and correct. Now we no need to just focus on that. We can go and do perform it. So go to payroll statutory unit, LDZ, legislative data group, and payroll statutory unit, both are same. Okay. However, they are giving the naming convention, legal entity in some places, legal employer in few places. So you could see this name as a legislative data group and payroll statutory unit, both are same. So we have to go to payroll statutory unit tab. Under that we have a field called as associated legislative data group with this legal entity. We have to associate legislative data group with this legal entity. So select our legislative data group here, which we created just now, right? So we given the name as Cloud INC USA legislative data group. So select and say okay. Okay, this is what we call as assigning LDZ, legislative data group, to legal entity as a part of HCM definition. Okay, say submit and say yes. Now if you use this legal entity for employee user creation, system will allow us, otherwise no. Say done. So we completed this task also. Okay, now we are going to create employee user. Okay, fine, we'll go and see that. Click on done. Fine. So if you want to create employee user, we have a separate task. We know very well how to create the implementation user. The implementation user you can create from security console. But when you talk about employee user, for employee user we have a separate task called as manage users. That will take us to HCM related page to define the employee definition, including the username. So task name is manage users, to create the employee users. Manage users, search for task called as manage users. Click on the task. So this is a page where we can create the employees. If you want to find out existing employees, you can search from this field. It's a keyword, it's an employee name, you can enter the person name. If you want to go with the detailed, advanced search option, you can click on advanced. It will open many fields. You can search with the job, the associate job. All the employees will be listed based on the city, location, email ID, department, and country name. Okay, so this is how just you can go with the advanced search. You may click on basic, so it will open only the keyword search. That's all. Anyway, we are going to create the new employee user here. So to create the new employee user, click on create. Just click on create. So provide last name. See, so this is a page where everyone can have access to create the employee users. If the employees are already created in as a part of HCM, the actual employee definition screen, So we don't need to do anything. The next step would be we'll select that employee in the security console and we assign the roles. Okay, this is a basic employee user definition page. The reality, HCM people will have a access to the other different page which allows them to associate a lot of employee related information with the specific record. Okay, it's a basic employee user definition page. So here we'll go with the name what we are using for all most of the definitions. We'll give the name as Cloud INC. Okay, so what are the which fields are mandatory? We'll go with those. And email ID is mandatory. Write it as a Cloud INC Gmail. And first name, mid name, last name, title not mandatory. We require user for this employee. So you provide username. So this is the last name, employee last name. This is the username. Employee last name just we given Cloud INC, but how you want, which you login credentials, which username you want to create for this employee. So I'm giving the same. So send username and password with the preference settings. Not required. We'll see that point also. How to see that, but for now you can uncheck or you can keep it. There won't. You don't see the difference in that. The point we'll discuss and understand. Okay, just give the username. Done. So here you have to select the person type. In the fresh instance, you could see only two values. One is contingent worker, second one is employee. The rest of all you can create through lookup values. Okay, these all are created in this environment. The guys who are practicing on the HCM, human capital management, they created all these additional values. In the fresh instance, you can see only these two seeded values: contingent worker and employee user. Now the person type you can select as an employee. Now system will ask us to associate this employee with legal employer, nothing but legal entity and business unit. Select our legal employer, legal entity. To which legal entity we already associated LDZ, legislative data group. So anyone, you tell me, like anyone created legal entity? Any legal entity name, please? You might have created legal entity, right? Yeah, please.
862. You can search with 862, sir.
What is that?
862, sir.
Oh, 862. 862. So, one second.
Percentage.
No percentage required. Any other legal entity name?
Fusion Planet.
Fusion Planet. Okay. Fusion. Okay, I don't see with the Fusion starting Fusion Planet.
Search with VK.
VK. Yeah, we'll go with this legal entity. Say now I'm going to select this legal entity. Say this legal entity is not associated with LDG, I guess. So if you select this legal entity, see what system gives a message: no legislative data group associated with this legal employer. Select different legal employer. Okay, this is the reason we associated legislative data group to our legal entity. If legislative data group is not associated with your legal entity, you cannot select that legal entity, okay, in this definition. And one more point I forgot to inform: if you are testing in this environment, better you can go with US. Take the US as a case, like since it's a vision environment, for few countries it won't support because of some HCM related localization, some patch applications and other issues. Okay, better you can, for your testing you can use this environment by just using the currency as USD or country as a USA. Yeah, fine. So let's select our legal employer, then there won't be any issue since we associated LDZ with our legal entity. So our legal entity name is Cloud INC. Right, search for the same. Cloud Inc. USA legal entity, just say OK. So select it. Reason, legislative data group is associated with our LE. Now we can select our business unit. Cloud Inc. Search. Only one BU we created, Cloud Inc. US business unit. So as a mandatory, we have to select the business unit at the time of employee user creation. But when we start working on payables or receivables, any BU specific modules, you cannot have access to this business unit, even it is included in your user definition. This will default only for expense report process. For all other applications, we have to give the access separately. Okay, we'll discuss this point once again when you do the data access for the user. You try to provide the access for any application for the application related roles, particular business unit, we'll discuss on that. But for now, remember, just make a note, whatever the business unit we are selecting in this user, this user is not going to have access to this business unit. As a part of definition, we have to give it. But for this user, this BU will be defaulted only for expense reports. Expense report creation purpose only, this BU will be defaulted, not for any other process. Okay, just remember this point. So that's all. This is the basic information we have to provide. Just last name, email ID, and username, and person type. Provide legal entity and business unit. These details would be enough. Say save and close. Now what system will do is, we created employee user. Automatically this employee user will get synchronized with the security console. This employee user will be available in security console. So here we are not able to set any password and all, right? So we cannot set directly, you cannot enter the password. So what we could do is, we can go to the security console. There we can set the password and we can assign the relevant roles to that user. So the task here is, we created employee user. Now the next step is, you can set password for user from security console. Next task is assign roles to user. So from now what we'll do is, we'll ignore Fusion India user which we are using now, and we'll proceed with the Cloud Inc. user. So now we'll make this Cloud Inc. user as a implementation user. For that we have to assign the 3 roles. For the same Cloud Inc. Okay, Cloud Inc. For the same Cloud Inc. user, will assign the implementation related 3 roles, and will assign the GL roles also, so that completely we can ignore Fusion India user. Fine. So we're just done with the user creation. Now we'll go and set the password, or you say reset the password, and we'll assign the required roles to this user, so that you can start working from this user only any sort of implementation or configuration activities. Fine. So once you create the employee user, this will get synchronized with the security console. Now go to security console. Go to security console. You can find this employee user from security console. Go to users, search for our username, Cloud Inc. Search. Now see, the users which you create from the security console, those we are calling as employee users. The users which you create by using the task called as employee manage users, we are calling as employee users. How can you differentiate in terms of definition? You could notice here, when you find the user, if you see business unit association, if you see the business unit is associated with any user, the person number, it's nothing but employee. Okay, if the person number is associated with any employee user, that you can say that is employee user. If you search for our Fusion India user, so with this user there is no person number association as well as business unit. If you provide manager and job names also, those will get associate. These you can manager job you can assign to any user, implementation user or employee user, but you can just uh, sorry, okay, this is a managerial job. Sorry, this you cannot map with the implementation user. This you can map anything, this information, the worker information you can associate only with employee user. So here this is a point where you can differentiate the user is implementation user or employee user. If the user is employee user, okay, you should find business unit and person number as a mandatory. The manager job association are optional. Okay, in case of implementation user, you don't find anything. That's how you can find out. Now we have our user called as cloud inc search. So you could see the person number and business unit. That means the cloud inc is employee user. Now we have to set the password for this user. Go to actions, say reset password, select set password. There is a one more point to discuss about the password related, how it will can get generated and all. We'll discuss that, but now just reset it. Fine. Now what we'll do is from now we'll ignore Fusion India and we'll proceed with the Cloud INC user. So for that what we have to do is we have to assign three roles to this user, which roles are mandatory for us to work on the implementation process. Which roles are those? Application implementation consultant, IT security manager and employee, right? We'll go and assign. How to assign? Click on the user login, click on edit, click on add role. So assign those three roles: application implementation consultant, select, say assign, add role membership, nothing but assign role to user, right? Other role is IT security manager, select, say assign, and the third role is employee, select role and assign. Done. We assign these three roles to this user. Along with this, what are the other roles we assign to our current user, Fusion India? We assign GL roles also, right? We assign GL roles and we assign our primary ledger to those same roles. The same will do for this user also. Since we are going to ignore Fusion India user, so we are going to proceed for further configuration from this Cloud INC user. We'll assign those 5 GL roles. For the 5 GL roles, we'll go and assign the primary ledger also. Okay, fine. And fine.
Accountant.
Sorry, any question?
No, no, nothing. Nothing.
Okay, fine. So we'll go and assign the GL related roles. What are the GL roles? Okay, general accountant, select. We discussed both are same, but based on the code you can just select any one of them. That's what we discussed. I'm just preferring which is starting with the GL. So other role is general accounting manager, select, assign, and we have three more serial roles for GL. Okay, Chief Financial Officer. Assign. And two more roles are, one is controller, the other one is financial analyst, right? These are the 5 seeded roles which you have for GL to have a complete access for the transaction process. The financial analyst. Select and assign. So done. We assigned required roles. Now say save and close. Now we'll go and assign our primary ledger to these 5 GL related roles. So whatever we did from that user, the same we are going to repeat. Okay. So which we can complete in a couple of minutes. Okay. Now what we have to do? You can just go to this task called as, which task we have to use to assign the primary ledger to roles. What is the task name? Anyone please? What is the task name?
Security contact.
No?
Manage profile.
Manage data access for users.
That's all. Okay, data access for users. Profile and all profile options, that's different, right? So we discussed, like, just to understand the profile options, how to navigate and all. Just we gone through simple example how to set default category for user, right? So the task is to assign anything. It could be primary ledger you want to assign to specific user related role, or your business unit you want to assign to specific user related role. You have to go with the task called as data access for users. So manage data access for users, yes, that is a task, but generally we ignore all the time for discussions or anything as a manage. So data access for users. So this is the task we discussed. So here is the task name, manage data access for users. From here only we associated our primary ledger to GL roles, right? The same we are going to do once again for our new user. Click on create. You know, this is a very simple task, right? Cloud INC, just tab out, it will fetch if the username exists. Yes, it's fetching. Now you can click on the roles. It's the second time we are doing. Okay, we are not going to do third, fourth time, but since we create a new user, we are doing it once again. So the first role is application implementation consultant. No mapping is required. This is just for configuration. So only we have to go with the GL roles. Chief Financial Officer, just select the role. And security contest, what we have to select? Which is the security contest we have to select? Data access set. We know, like, against each primary ledger, system creates data access set with the same privileges which ledger will have. So we have to select the data access set. So with this we have to assign the data access set to this role. Instead of saying data access set, let's call it as, we have to assign our primary ledger to the role, reality data access set, right? So the ledger name is Cloud INC USA primary ledger, right? Select it. Done. The same we have to repeat for other roles also. The same task already we did. Once again we are doing for this new user. Cloud INC, select role. Next role is controller. Security contest is data access set. Select security contest value as your primary ledger name and click on add, or you may go with the duplication. In that case the username will remind us you have to enter. Cloud INC. The role is financial analyst. Security contest data access set. So value is Cloud INC USA primary ledger. Click on add. We have two more roles, right? Cloud INC. Select role called as general accountant. Security contest is data access set. The contest value is Cloud INC USA primary ledger. You can click on next, Cloud INC. You can tab out, it will fetch. So the next role is General Accounting Manager. That's all. For this total, we assigned 8 roles to this Cloud INC user. 3 are specific to implementation. We don't need to do the data related mapping. Here data mapping is nothing but primary ledger association. So only for 5 roles that is required, which are specific to GL, which will have access to transaction process. Fine. Done. So we assigned our primary ledger to the GL roles for our user. Say save and close. We're done with this. Okay, what is the next task we have to perform? Just submit LDAP job. Okay, that's a very common task whenever you assign anything to the user to specific roles. Fine. So go to ESS job page. I think we tagged as a favorites. We'll check it. Go to favorites. So here we tag that ESS job page into favorites, right? You can click on ESS job page directly. It will take you to the SRS window. Similar page here we are calling as ESS job page. So if you want to take the navigation, you have to go to navigator under tools. You can find the schedule processes that already we have seen many times. Right? Just click on schedule new process. Search for the task called as job called as LDAP, lightweight directory access protocol. Right? So tab out and search. Select job called as retrieve latest LDAP changes and say OK. So what is the purpose of this? It synchronizes users and user related roles and role related grants in the LDAP directory definition. Say OK. Submit. This job runs at instance level, entire instance level. It's not user specific or application specific or process specific. It's entire instance level system will run. By this time, if any pending submissions are there in the environment, this instance, which are done by other users, roles, assignments and all, everything will get synchronized. So everybody is no need to run this job. Some other at a time, if multiple users done with the user definition, roles, assignment, if any one user is going to submit, that will impact other user related work also. So see, now we are running this job. The same time, if somebody is going to run the same job, system will block it. System locks it because it in the submission of queue, it will identify the same similar job is submitted by other user and it will keep in the queue and it will block it. Once this job is completed, that would be released in the queue and that would be submitted and processed once again. When you run this job, if you see the status as a blocked, understand the same job, retrieve latest LDAP changes job is submitted by other user same time. So we no need to worry about it if you see the status as a blocked and all. After some time it will release and it will complete normal. Fine, done. Okay, anyway, it takes some time and it will get synchronized. So we reset the password and we assign the roles to the user. Now the next task what we did from that user or previous user, the same we'll go and do from this user also. What we have to do, we'll just go and open the GL periods. We'll go and open the GL periods. Once again, we no need to test by passing the journal. Just we'll open the GL periods, then we'll proceed with the further AP configuration and the rest of definitions which are required. Log into the instance as a Cloud INC user. Cloud INC. Say sign in. So Cloud INC is employee user. Okay, go to GL to open the GL periods. So from this is we call as springboard. Okay, which you see here, this is springboard, is all we call as springboard icons. Since we assign the GL related roles to this user and for the same roles we given the data access, Okay, through our to our ledger, you could see general accounting. Click on this and select the task called as period close. This is all we done already. So once again we are repeating, since we are dealing everything from the new user. It will take us to this page. Just you select your ledger name as a data access set. So reality data access set. So username or ledger name is Cloud Inc USA primary ledger. Say OK. So what is the status of our ledger? Current period May month is open. Okay, done. So we opened from the previous user, right? It's we know like it's not a user specific. From that user we just done with this. So anyway, like we completed the task in the May month, so the period is already open. Okay, done. So GL site, everything is set fine. Now we can proceed with the further configuration. Now what we have to do is we have to create the employee user, whatever we created, that employee user we have to create as a procurement agent. Okay, procurement agent, nothing but buyer. We have to convert our employee user as a procurement agent. Then only from that user you will be able to create the supplier definition. Okay, so we'll see that. We have to create the procurement agent. Create procurement agent. Procurement agent, nothing but buyer. So we know how we create the buyer in case of EBS. It's very simple. We go and select employee into buyers list. That's all. No controls, no specification. Just we have to include the employee name into buyers list. That's how system will understand the employee is acting as a buyer in the organization. But here it's totally different, and you can set the variety of permissions, the level of privileges. We'll go and see that. And again, this is connected with the employee supplier definition also. So already we discussed only procurement agent. Okay, only procurement agent can create the complete supplier definition. Okay, only procurement agent can create supplier sites. Supplier can be created by implementation user also, but sites can be created by procurement agent. Who can act as a procurement agent? Only employee user. Okay, employee user only you can create as a procurement agent. That procurement agent can create the supplier sites. This is how it works. There's some other, when you create the procurement agent, you can specify that employee can involve in which procurement related activities, which documents the agent can create, whether the agent can see other agent documents or not. All these specifications you can give within the definition time. We'll go and see. If you have any questions, we'll discuss. But this is a point basically we have to understand. If you want to create the procurement agent, the user should be a employee user. Okay, the user should be a employee user, and the employee user only can be converted as a procurement agent. Only procurement agent can create supplier sites. You cannot convert implementation user as a procurement agent. Okay, so this is the point we have to understand. We'll go and see how to create the procurement agent. Fine. So since this Cloud Inc user has access to application implementation consultant role, we can have access to FSM from here itself. Right, go to setup and maintenance. We are able to see setup and maintenance. Reason, we assigned application implementation consultant role to this Cloud Inc user. Go to task list, go to manage implementation projects. Our project is associated with the Fusion India user, right? Now we'll change that assignment. You can search for our project, Cloud Inc, search. This is our project. Click on the project name. You could see here this project is associated with Fusion India. Now we'll change the assignment. Click on edit, change to Cloud Inc. Say search, username is cloud inc. Search for the value, select, and say OK. So selected cloud inc. We are reassigning this project to cloud inc. So save and close. From now, easily you can navigate to this by clicking on overview, right? If you click on overview, system will display the projects which are associated with the current user. Done. Fine. So now we have to create the procurement agent. So if you want to create the procurement agent, reality procurement agent function is related to purchasing or say procurement. The task is core function of purchasing or say procurement offering. But that would be available within the financials also, because the finance got dependency on procurement agent definition. Otherwise, as a part of finance in payables, you cannot create the supplier definition. So even if you don't have a subscription for procurement from Oracle, so still you will be able to create the procurement agent as a part of financial offering. So very simple. So when we are working on any offering, the offering got which dependencies from other offerings, those also included in the same offering itself. Okay, that's how just they framed that offering definition. So now you can search for procurement agent task. Within the financials you can find. Search for procurement agent. Here you could see the task called as manage procurement agent, where we have managed procurement agent within the financials only. So financials, define invoicing and payment configuration, define payables, define common options for payables and procurement. By following this path you can see the task. Anyway, directly we are able to find it. Click on the same task, then click on go to task icon. So here scope selection is required for this. If scope selection is required, directly you cannot perform this directly from FSM, so you have to do from the project. If not project, other option also we discussed. So click on go to task icon, select business unit, say apply and go to task. So what's our business unit name? Cloud inc. Search and select record. When you are selecting, don't click on the name, it will open the BU definition. Say save and close. So here we can create the procurement agent. So by selecting the business unit, we navigated here. That selection will be useful from next time onwards when you navigate to this page. First time you have to define it. Okay, fine. So now here you could see there are many procurement agents are created against specific business units. Fine, we'll go and see. Click on create. So first we have to select procurement BU, and later we have to select default requisitioning BU. So any guess on this? Which BU you treat as a procurement BU? Which BU you can treat as a procurement BU? Which BU will be available in this LOV? Any guess on this?
All views.
No? Which BU you guess?
Probably having business function as procurement.
Exactly, that is
Enabled.
the point. That is the point. Okay. So for which BUs you enable procurement business functions, only those BUs will be available here to get selected as a procurement BU. Okay, our BU we enabled everything, right? So our BU will be available. If you don't allow someone to select your BU in the procurement process, what we have to do? Assign business unit business functions, right? The task we have, which we perform. Assign business unit business functions. In this setup, don't include procurement business functions so that BU won't be available in this LO. In the same way, requisitioning business function also we associated, we enabled for our BU. So that is the reason our BU will come under this LOB also. Okay, that is the point. So this is procurement related setup. So for which BU you enable procurement business function, that BU can act as a procurement BU. That's it. Fine. Now we can find our BU. So Cloud INC US business unit. You don't find all the BUs here. For which BUs procurement business function is enabled, only those BUs you can see. Select it. So who is going to act as the agent for this business unit? So when you create the procurement agent buyer, you have to create the procurement agent or buyer for specific business unit. You can make one procurement agent to act as a, or I'll say one employee to act as a procurement agent for multiple BUs. Okay, but one by one you have to perform. Who is our agent? Cloud INC, right? Cloud INC. Cloud INC, the user email ID we given at the time of definition. Select. So default requisitioning BU is not mandatory. If you want to set when this agent is going to perform the requisition creation, which BU need to be defaulted. This is optional. Even if you set in the process of requisition creation, you have to set default once again. That's how system will ask us. So select, because for the same BU requisitioning business function is enabled. That is the reason we are getting this. If you don't enable, you don't get it. And default printer. When I talk about printer, we have to understand one point. In case of EBS, who do the printer configuration? Generally DBA we do it, right? DBA install the printer, and the printer related configuration can be done, or else sometimes maybe so with the support of DBA some technical or other resource can do it, but primarily that should be done by DBA. In case of EBS, since the instance will be owned by us, I mean to say the most of the cases we run the EBS on premise only. But in case of Fusion, the printer installation should be done by Oracle DBA team. Okay, we have to raise SR to Oracle. They'll ask specific information, okay, to install our printer in the cloud environment. So we have to raise SR to Oracle for the printer related installation in our environment, in our instance or in our pod. So they'll ask for specific information which will get connected to your printer connectivity, and once you provide, they'll do all the required configuration and they'll set everything is fine. Then you'll be finding that printer names in this LOV. If you want to default some printer for specific procurement agent, mean to say procurement buyer, you can find it and you can select. The same is applicable for everything wherever we process the documents for printing purpose. So since this is Vision instance, that sort of configuration is not done. Even to understand also, we cannot go and see that. That should be done by Oracle only. Being a finance consultant or any functional consultant, we cannot perform this task. So always we raise SR to Oracle. They'll do the required setup. Okay, hope this is clear to everyone. Done. Now we are just making Cloud INC as a procurement agent. We are making the Cloud INC the procurement agent. We are making this agent as to work for this business unit. Fine. When this employee is going to work as a procurement agent for this business unit, so we want to allow access to which documents that you can specify. Manage requisitions. You want to give access to this agent to work on the requisitions or not. By default, allowed. If you don't want to allow this agent to work on the requisitions, you can restrict, uncheck it. And purchase orders, the standard purchase order, purchase agreement. We have a blanket contract, right? All these agreements. Whether you want to allow this agent to work on or you want to allow or not, that you can specify. In the same way, negotiations, sourcing programs, these are all related to, so the sourcing related, negotiation, sourcing, and catalog content, so core procurement related. And manage suppliers. So here also we have a control. Do you want to allow this agent to create the suppliers? If you uncheck, you cannot, this agent, this procurement agent cannot create the suppliers. And supplier qualification separate application we have, which is a part of procurement. And the same, the supplier related list of entries related to supplier related definitions, which is part of core procurement. Analyze and to perform some analysis. So and reporting related, all these privileges grant accesses. You can decide what sort of privileges you want to give to this employee when the employee is going to act as a procurement agent. That is the first point. Okay, so here you can specify for which documents and for which activities you want to allow this procurement agent, this employee, to act as a procurement agent to perform all this. So you can specify. By default all are allowed. You can change however required when you do the implementation. And another point is fine. So here, based on this employee user being a procurement agent can work on all these actions for only this business unit. That's fine. So for the same business unit, other procurement agents also will be working. Do you want to allow this agent to view other agent documents? See here, access to other agent documents. So you are allowing this procurement agent, this employee, okay, to work for this business unit and to create the requisitions. You are allowing this agent to create the requisitions for this business unit. But you want to allow the same agent to view other agent documents. You want to allow, view, or modify, or completely take action on that you can specify here. So you want to allow Cloud INC to view other agent documents. If you set view, this agent can view other agent documents also. Otherwise no, only that agent, Cloud INC, what are the requisitions the Cloud INC is going to create, only those can be accessed by the Cloud INC. But if you set to view other agent documents, all other agent documents can be viewed by this Cloud INC agent. And here we have a full access. Okay, so here I'll take you other elements so that you can understand these detailed three values. So view means just view. Okay, so other one is modify. Modify means if you set modify, this agent can modify the documents which are created by other agent. Means the record, the purchase order information can be modified by this agent, which are created by other agent. If you set to full, not only viewing and modifying, this agent can perform the actions on the document also. It could be cancelling, okay, and just working on some approval related reassignments, etc. Full privileges. So view means just as it is, the document can be viewed by this agent. Modify means within the document certain elements, the parameters, fields can be changed by this agent. And say if you say full, along with the view and modification, the actions also can be performed by this agent on other agent related documents. So this sort of privileges you can set for any one of the action, for which action you are granting the privileges to this agent. So these are the points we have to understand when you talk about procurement agent. So any questions here, please? So this is how we have to create the procurement agent. And there are
Can you one more time explain the difference?
Sorry?
Hello. Can you one more time explain the difference between full and modify?
Full and modify. Say you created one document. Within that I want to change the some schedule date. I want to change some item specification. If I select modify, okay, that agent can do, other agent can do, other agent documents, this user can do, this user can do the modifications. If you say full, it's not like modifying the data which is there within the document, performing some action on the document. Say you want to cancel, yes, the user can cancel. Okay, performing some action which will be applicable for entire document, that comes under full privileges. Modifying means data modification within the document. Clear?
Yeah, thanks.
Yep. Fine. If you take,
Lakshman, question.
please.
Lakshman, in case of EBS R12, in order to create requisitions or in order to have access to the requisitions, a user need not be created as a buyer. But here, is that mandatory?
Yes. You are right. Yes, we no need to create employee as a buyer for requisition. Here mandatory. They apply it
Okay.
for all these documents. That logic.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Again, there you cannot set this sort of privileges also, right?
Yes, correct.
See here, I can make this cloud INC as a buyer without enabling this, but still I can create it, but no access. But in case of EBS, just if you give this some sort of, just if you add employee into that buyers list, the buyer will be ready to work on any purchase orders and all, anything. But here, until unless you give the privileges, the buyer cannot, the procurement agent cannot have access. That's how we have. Yeah, that's the difference we can notice. Yeah, any other questions here, please?
Can I upload agents using a spreadsheet?
Yes. We have that option. They given that option that we could see as a part of RAP implementation. For you will see the big list of spreadsheets which can be used as a part of RAP implementation to load the bulk volume of the data in one go. This can be done. Even users you can load and procurement agents also can load. Yes, you can do that. Fine. So any other questions?
Lakshman, save and close the drop down list. Yesterday it was not working. Can we see that? Create additional.
We'll see. Yeah, today it's working. This is how it comes. Save and create another. For anything you create, the same value will come. The same definition you can save and you can create one more. That means, say here you may take the case. You are making this Cloud INC as a procurement agent only for Cloud INC USA business unit. You want to make the same agent to act as a procurement agent for Cloud India business unit. In that case, you may use it. That's it. It will save and it will refresh the page and create one more record. That's all. Fine. Any questions here, please? And there are a few other points which are connected to this and which will be understanding at the time of supplier creation time, not now. So we can understand from that definition only. Any questions here to understand about procurement agent definition, please? And hope you are clear on printer related configuration. That should be done by Oracle DBA team only. We have to raise SR. Okay, that's all. Okay, so anyway, everything by default system will enable as allowed. You don't need to change it. It's based on the, when you are working for the project, depending on the client need, you may change, but just for your practice purpose, you can allow everything as is and you can proceed. Okay, say save and close. Done. Click on done. From next time onwards, if you navigate to this page, click on go to task icon. Just it will default. Your BU is selected here, right? The scope it will be showing for that BU. This user is acting as a procurement agent. That's all. That information you can get as a default. Fine, done. So we created procurement agent. This point I will take here. Fine. So we discussed one point. The procurement agent can create supplier definition, including the site. Supplier header definition can be done by any user, implementation user or employee user, but site can be created by only procurement agent. So that is a point we discussed. Okay, so or else what we'll do is we'll proceed with some other configuration and we'll talk about supplier definition. Anyway, for supplier definition we need some prerequisite as well, so we'll complete and we'll proceed. Okay, so now we'll proceed with another concept instead of supplier. We'll create supplier as a part of further tables further configuration. Now we'll talk about reference data sets. Okay, so we're done with this. We're done with the procurement agent creation. Any questions on these points, please? Legislative data group, assigning LDZ to legal entity, and creating the employee user, select the password, rules, and procurement agent creation. Any questions on these few tasks, please?
Yes, sir. Even in R12, while creating an employee, do we assign a legal entity and business unit?
So not required. We don't set it up all that information as a mandatory. In the process of that HRMS, the mapping will be established, but those are not mandatory. It's a very simple definition. If you want to create the employee in HRMS point of view, primarily we will give the last name and will specify the action as a create employment, and you may provide the date of birth for that employee. Then system will create the employee record. But here these are mandatory. That's how they correct.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, fine. So any questions here, please? If no questions, so we'll talk about reference data set, how that is connected with certain definitions. We'll understand.
Unmuted.
We'll understand. Any questions, please? Any questions, please? I could notice somebody is unmuted, so I can hear myself. Fine. So any questions from anyone, please? If no questions, we'll continue. So no questions. Now we'll see how to reference data set.
Unmuted.
Data set.
Yeah, Lakshman, any specific reason that only procurement agent can create site only?
Yeah, I could see one guy like Yashpal. Do you have any questions? You are just unmuting. Any questions, sir?
Unmuted.
Any questions, sir?
Lakshman, I'm asking why this power creating.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Seems to you are trying to speak something. This I can't hear you. Right? Okay, fine. So we'll talk about reference data sets. Say create a reference data set. A reference data set. So let me just include the relevant tasks here which are related to reference data sets. We'll talk on that. So we'll create the reference data set. To understand that, we'll create the payment terms. Okay, and we have to assign that payment term to reference data set. Create payment terms, assign to reference data set. Finally, assign reference data set to business unit. This is how it works. So what we have to do is we have to create a reference data set, or else that anyway we'll create it. What we'll do is we'll create the payment term. That payment term we have to assign to reference data set. Before that, we create reference data set RDS, then create payment term, assign reference data set to uh, assign payment term to reference data set, and assign reference data set to business unit BU. So this is the process we have to follow. Create reference data set, assign reference data set to assign payment term, create payment terms, assign payment terms to reference data set, assign reference data set to business unit. Okay, so why we are going to do all these, how it will work, we'll try to understand now. Say for example, we have BU1 in case of EBS operating unit, right? Here just we are calling as BU. So say BU2 and BU3. Say we have these three business units, and I'm going to create I'm going to create one payment term called as, I'm not referring where I'm creating. I'll create one payment term called as net 45. So if I create net 45 payment term, so this payment term would be available in which business unit? As per EBS only. The same is applicable for Fusion. So if I create one payment term, that would belongs to which business unit? Anyone?
The specific business unit, BU1.
If you create business unit in EBS, if you create payment terms in EBS, the payment terms should be available under which business unit? If I take example, you have operating unit 1, operating unit 2, operating unit 3. The same I am taking here as a BU1, BU2, BU3. If you create any payment terms in EBS, that is belongs to which BU? Or
It available every
BU1.
sorry,
Only BU1.
BU1.
No dependency of BU.
If I create the same payment terms under operating unit 2, that would be available under only operating unit 2.
No, it's available everywhere, Lakshman.
That is the statement. That is the actual point. So payment terms are not specific to operating unit in EBS. The same point is applicable in Fusion also. The payment terms not applicable, not specific to operating units in EBS. In the same way, the payment terms are not specific to BUs in Fusion. Okay. It's not like you cannot create payment terms for specific BU1 or BU2, BU3. When you create the payment terms, there is no option to select and to tag. That is for which operating unit or which business unit. In case of Fusion, which business unit. So whatever the payment term you create, that will be available under all the business units. In case of EBS, under all the operating units. So now my question is, you take a EBS case only. You have a 3 operating units. You created one payment term. You want to restrict that payment term to be available only under OU1. What you can do? Anyone, please? What you can do? Or else you want to keep that payment term to be available only for your OU1 and OU2, not to OU3. What we have to do?
Maybe form level personalization with a context.
Yes, there is no standard functionality. We have to look for something to manage through some workaround or etc. Right? So, but here
That is correct. Yeah.
Here we can use the reference data set to manage that kind of situations. You are creating one payment term called as a net 45. The net 45 should be available by default. By default, the net 45 is available under all the operating units in case of EBS. But in the Fusion, if you create any payment term, that won't be available under any business unit by default. In EBS, if you create the payment term by default, that would be available under all the operating unit. But in the Fusion, if you create one payment term, that won't be available under any business unit until unless you provision it, that too through reference data set. Now, after creating the payment term, what you have to do is you have to specify this payment term should be available under which business unit. It should be available under which business unit. Whether this should be available under only BU1 or else BU1 and BU2, or the net 45 should be available for BU1 and BU3, or else BU2 and BU3, or else for 3 or only for 1. That could be BU2 only or BU3 only or BU1. Exactly how the payment term should be available, you can decide and you can implement the solution as per a requirement by using the reference data set. Just we are taking example for payment term. The same logic is applicable for many other setups, many other definitions. So that means with the reference data set, what we are trying to achieve, certain definitions, certain setups, mostly when you talk about finance, BU specific definitions, you can take the decision the specific definitions which you do, those should be available for a specific business unit or across the business units. You can take the decision accordingly. You can set up your reference data set. So in payables, you are creating the payment terms. The payment term should be available for a specific BU or multiple BUs or all the BUs. You can set up as per a requirement by using the reference data set. If you take the example of pay receivables, I'm taking the simple example, receivable side, we create transaction types, transaction sources, right? The transaction types and transaction sources what we create, those you want to use for specific business unit or multiple business units, you can set by using the reference data set. The same when you talk about fixed assets, when you talk about fixed assets, it's not specific to BU, right? It's specific to books, or corporate books and tax book. The certain definitions which you do, which are specific to book, those should be available in one book or multiple books that you can decide. Accordingly, you can create the reference data set. Okay, that's how it works. Fine. We'll see. We'll go with a simple example. So, say you are creating one payment term, net 45. Now your requirement is the net 45 payment term. Okay. So BU1, we'll go with a simple example. So BU2 and BU3. You have these three BUs. Now you created one payment term called as net 45. Now you want to allow the BU1 to have access to this net 45. In that case, what you have to do is you create one reference data set only for BU1. So I'll create one reference data set called as BU1 reference data set. So create reference data set for BU1, separate reference data set. Now what you can do is you can assign net 45 payment term to BU1 reference data set. Now assign BU1 reference data set to BU1. If you have access to BU1, say you are going to create the invoice from BU1. When you are creating the invoice from BU1, so BU1 have access to BU1 RDS, reference data set. So to that reference data set, how many payment terms are assigned? Only one. So from BU1, when you are creating the invoices, you can have access to only net 45 payment term. And you want to give access to, you need one more payment term from BU1, that is immediate. Create immediate payment term. What we have to do? This immediate payment term you have to assign to your BU specific reference data set. You assign to this. Now your BU is accessing BU1 reference data set. So the BU1 will have access to these two payment terms through the BU associated reference data set. Now BU2 also required access to net 45, only net 45. BU2 is required access to net 45. In that case, create one reference data set called as BU2 reference data set. Now assign the net 45 payment term to the BU2 reference data set. Now assign the same reference data set to the respective BU. Now BU2 can have access to net 45 payment term only. Now BU3 required access to only immediate payment term. In that case, create BU3 RDS. Separate reference data set you create. Now assign only immediate payment term to BU3 reference data set and assign this reference data set to BU3. Now BU3 can have access to only immediate through this reference data set, and BU2 can have access to only net 45, and BU1 can have access to the two payment terms. Net 45 is assigned to BU1 reference data set. Immediate also assigned to BU1 reference data set. So BU1 can have access to 2, BU2 can have access to only net 45, BU3 can have access to net 45. So BU3 need access to two payment terms. So in that case, what we have to do? BU3 need access to two payment terms, net 45 and immediate. What we have to do?
Switch to BU1 RDS.
Yes, that is a one option. Otherwise, if you want to maintain RDS specific to BU, assign. What we have to do? What we have to assign?
Okay, assign both the terms to BU3.
Already immediate is assigned. We have to assign just net 45 to BU3 reference data set. That's all. Right?
Okay, okay.
Yeah, BU3 already has access to immediate. Now BU3 require access to 2, but only one payment term only assigned to BU3. BU3 require access to net 45 also. The simple task what we have to do is assign net 45 to BU3 reference data set. If you think why to assign the same reference payment term to this, instead of doing that, anyway this BU1 RDS has access to two payment terms. So you can BU1 RDS you can assign to BU3 business unit, so that through this RDS this BU3 can have access to two payment terms. Two options we have. Now we have BU4. So BU4 need access to, here I'll say net 30. So BU4 need access to three payment terms. So now what we have to be simple, we know very well, just these three reference data sets, three payment terms we have to assign to the specific BU related reference data set. Assign net 45, assign immediate, assign net 30. Net 30. So this is how we can assign. Finally, we can assign that reference data set to that BU. Now the requirement is how many payment terms we have, all should be accessed by all the business units. Say we have 10 payment terms or 100 payment terms. We have 100 payment terms. So in case of EBS, how it works, if you have 100 payment terms, you no need to do anything. Automatically 100 payment terms will be available for all the operating units. So client need that similar practice, but by default it is not possible. How to achieve it? What are the payment terms you put in the system, those need to be available under all the business units. So in that case, what we have to do?
We have to create one RDS and assign it to everything.
All payment terms. You may create one reference data set called all payment terms RDS. Assign 100 payment terms to the reference data set. It's mandatory you have to assign. Automatically don't happen. You should do it. Assign 100 payment terms to that all payment terms reference data set to manual process. Now assign this all payment terms reference data set to all the BUs.
Lakshman, one of the goal for this cloud is to make the implementation simple, right? So Oracle did not think about creating one of these all payment terms RDS at all?
Because there could be some scenarios where certain business units will involve in the, every business unit, there could be some scenarios where few business unit will have their unique payment terms. So they don't want to ask users to select some different payment terms which are not permitted to use from the BU. So that would be unnecessary information for the business unit. If they think, yeah, commonly they can access, they can go with this kind of solution what we are discussing now, maintaining one reference data set for all. Otherwise, there is a filtration option if somebody is required, where some few clients we use it also. They are giving
Okay, but Oracle,
that's it. They are giving
yeah.
flexibility. That's all.
Okay, but Oracle did not give, because still there are two levels, right? One, during the configuration, the implementation consultant still go and assign this all payment terms, right?
Yes.
So typically, so Oracle out of the box is not even providing that ability to the implementation consultant.
See, implementation time you can do it, and these assignments you can change any point of time.
Right, but with access of the implementation access, right? What I meant to say.
That question, I didn't get it.
So what I'm asking is the goal of one of these cloud implementations, not only this Workday or if we take any product, right?
You are talking about
this is simplification, easy to implement, easy to use, right?
Exactly.
So if Oracle is not providing something saying, say, all payment terms, right? Which could be in general a default. So now as an implementation consultant, I or you should create one and assign all the 100 payments.
One point here, it's not all about only cloud. Even if you are not going to opt for cloud, if you are going with on-premise also, that's how the product they developed now. The slight change they did in the product where they introduced the reference data sets, which will allow us to segregate the data BU wise. I'm not talking about this, is just we are taking example for payment, and the same concept, same reference data set is applicable for a lot of BU specific data. Okay. So just this feature they introduced to segregate and to maintain the data BU wise if you want. Otherwise, you can go with the commonly with the one reference data set. Not only in the cloud, even if you go with the Fusion on-premise, the same feature you can see. It's not specific to cloud. Even in on-premise also you could see the same. Yes. Fine. So this is a point we have to understand. The same reference data set is applicable for what are the different concepts that we'll see as a part of system. Okay, it's applicable for many definitions. We'll go through and we'll understand. But just to understand about this reference data set, any questions, please? I am just taking the simple example as a payment terms. So any questions here to understand about this reference data set, please?
Lakshman, what are that we are using some common set?
Yeah, I'll come to that. A common set similar to this. All payment terms. Common. It is not specific to specific BU. Common. Means it's the purpose is everything will assign to this. This will assign to all the BUs. All the BUs will have access to everything which is assigned to common. That's it. In fresh instance, Oracle is providing two reference data sets. One is common, other one is enterprise. So that is a code name, and you could see the name as a display name as a common set. Enterprise set. Common, enterprise, nothing but common set and enterprise set. So common is the one, these are the seeded. These two reference data sets are seeded. So normally when we work on the test environment and all, we use common only. Finally, with the client decision and all, we'll have a discussion which data they want to share across, which data they want to limit the specific BU. And again, this reference data set is applicable for what are the different data definitions. They all will just explain to the client, will discuss, and will finalize how they need. Certain you can set common, certain you can set BU specific. All you will understand once you create the reference data set, once you provision the access to payment terms to specific BU, you will get the complete meaning of this reference data set. But just for information as of now, in the fresh instance, you can see only two reference data sets. One is common, other one is enterprise. Common, which you can use commonly for any definition. They just given the enterprise as a other name also. So this is all about just naming convention. These two values they given, you can create a number of values as per your requirement. So even we selected common at BU level, right? On that we have to understand another point. Okay, once you start working there, we'll talk about that more on that when you start with MOAC, multi-org access control. It will impact that. So any questions to understand this reference data set, please?
What I understood with your saying is common or enterprise is one and the same. Is it correct?
Correct. Both are same. Just two values they provided as a some sample, and they made a logic also. If you are going to create something automatically, rapid implementation, they written the programming system has to pick common reference data set wherever it is required in the setups. When we do the setups, we select, right? We created our business unit. What we selected common. But if the business unit is going to be created by system through rapid implementation approach, so the system will pick common only. So that's how they programmed. Later you can just, that's how you can do later. The BU level you can override. That option also we'll discuss. Okay, these are the two values they given as a C8 values. You can create a number of as per your requirement across the different applications. Fine. Fine. If you are just clear on this, the same will execute in the system in the tomorrow session. Okay, if any questions from anyone, please. If no questions, we can wind up for today.